Honestly, I never thought that I would homeschool. I taught drafting at a local public high school for 6 years, and my intention was always to just work in the district where my kids went to school. I knew that the most involved parents had the most successful students, and so that was my plan, to be involved, to be an employee at the district where my kids went to school, to know their friends and their teachers, and in that way I had a greater chance at their success. But what happened circumstantially is that the state where I was teaching increased graduation requirements to include more of the core subjects. And so elective classes like mine were seeing a decrease in enrollment. And the year that my second child was born, my position became a part-time position. And so now I had 2 children in childcare to pay for on a part-time salary. And my husband and I found it very difficult to make financial sense of that. Even still, I thought maybe we'll weather these couple of years financially and see it through and continue with the plan that I had. But we decided to bring it to prayer and to consider all of our options. And ultimately, I found myself verbally processing to one of the administrators in the school district where I work. She was a sort of a motherly mentor to me. And she looked at me and said, "Beth, no one ever gets to my age and thinks, boy, I wish I would have worked more when my kids were little." And to me, that was quite a wake-up call. I thought, yeah, you're right. I don't want to get to the end of 18 years, which will go by in a blink, and have regrets. I don't want to think, where did the time go? And I wish I would have had more time with my kids. And so that was the first impetus for my staying home. Once I was home for a couple of years, my oldest was 5, and that spring we started to consider all of the schooling options. We knew that we lived in a good public school district. We went to open houses for private schools, and my husband and I went to the Great Homeschool Convention that year just to learn more about the homeschooling option. And while we were there, I listened to a speaker. Her name was Susan Wise Bauer. You may know her as the author of The Well-Trained Mind. And she was talking about classical education, which was a completely different approach to teaching than I had ever been accustomed to. I grew up and graduated from public school. I went to a public university, and I was trained to be a public school employee. And so this new method of education was intriguing to me. And I listened to her sort of outline some of the shortcomings that we know are prevalent in the modern progressive education style, and to offer up solutions by this new way of learning, which wasn't really new, it was classical. And so I was intrigued enough that I bought her book and I started reading more about it. And the more that I learned, just the more convicted I became that this was what we wanted to do with our children. And so that is how we came to the decision to homeschool. I also saw in the classical method and just in the investment of time that I could make with my children an opportunity to point them to Christ in every subject that we would encounter. And that was really appealing to me as well. And my why for homeschooling has only grown stronger. We've been homeschooling now for going on 7 years, and every year I feel more and more convinced that this is the right choice for us. I want to share with you 3 quotes that have strengthened my why over the years and hope that they will be an encouragement to you. The first one is by C.S. Lewis, and he says, "Education without values, as useful as it is, seems rather to make man a more clever devil." And so that for me is just a call to invest in my kids' lives and to raise them up with good values and good character training as we homeschool together. Another quote from William Butler Yeats says, "Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire." And it grieves me to think so many children in public schools these days dislike learning. I don't want that for my children. I want them to love learning. I want their fire to be lit. And so homeschooling affords us the opportunity to enjoy what we're learning and to learn what we enjoy. And finally, just straight from the Bible, 3 John chapter 3, verse 14 says, "I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth." And that is a huge goal for our family, is to know that our children are walking in the truth. I want to get to the end of our 18 years together, not have regrets, but be able to say, I did all that I could to point them to Christ, and they are walking in the truth.